There we go. All right, perfect. So if you don't know who I am, I'm Axel T. Ernst from Get Speaking English. And today, actually, we are going to check out a lesson about the second part of the speaking paper of the B2 first exam, but also a lot of what we'll talk about will also apply to the second part of the speaking paper on the C1 advanced exam as well. And we're going to learn a lot of just vocabulary, phrases, things of that nature. And hopefully we'll have a better understanding about how we can not only address this task, but also do it in the context of speaking about animals, since obviously when we're doing these kinds of exams, we need to know how to speak about a variety of different topics. All right, perfect. So, as I mentioned, this lesson is going to be aiming at preparing students for the B2 first, the C1 advanced Cambridge exams. However, a lot of these words, a lot of these phrases we're going to be discussing will also be helpful for those of you preparing for an IELTS exam, for example, TOEFL, also various general English exams, and also just for anyone who's looking to finally get speaking English at an upper intermediate to an advanced level. So that's what we're aiming for today. So feel free to come on in and leave your comments in the chat if you are able to. That would be really great. And yeah, so hopefully we will brainstorm together a lot of really useful information, really great notes that we could all learn from in the end. And as usual, I will upload this video to YouTube, and the notes and everything will be available there as well, so you can review them afterwards. All right, perfect. Okay. So just a little bit of an overview of what we're going to be looking at today. We're going to be doing a bit of a warm-up activity. We're going to be discussing animals and humans and sort of how animals can benefit humans. Let's just say, maybe that sort of relationship, because obviously humans, we use animals for a lot of different things, right? And they are very beneficial, they play a very important role in our lives, right? And then, as I mentioned, we're going to be looking at a part 2 task today. So those of you who don't know, this task involves looking at some photos, and you have to be able to compare and contrast those photos and then answer some questions. So we're going to focus on brainstorming some language around those pictures, also brainstorming some answers to those questions, and then finally we'll look at some phrases for comparing and contrasting. And then afterwards, as usual, I'm going to put everything on YouTube. You'll be able to get the notes there as well, and I'll also share them to Discord. All right, so just as a bit of a warm up, let's brainstorm together, okay? So how do animals benefit people's lives? And feel free to put your answers or your ideas in the chat so we can collectively come up with a bunch of sort of ideas we can all learn from. So feel free to throw out any ideas that you have there. And obviously I have my own ideas as well. But yeah, how do animals benefit people's lives? Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is, we eat animals. So obviously one way is that they provide us with a source of food, right? Obviously, a lot of animals are raised for meat consumption, right? Which means that we eat them. And obviously they provide a lot of protein, right? So they provide us with protein, which is a very important element of our diet. We need protein in order to survive, right? And there's a couple different animals that we might raise, right? Obviously, we keep, there's poultry, for example. So chicken, turkey, duck, for example. Pretty much anything with wings we could refer to as poultry. So it's common to raise poultry as food, right? But also animals for dairy, right? So for example, it's common to raise, cows, dairy, there we go, for cows and goats, for example, or other animals for milk and dairy products. So anything dairy related, we're talking about something milk related, something that came from an animal. I know that there are a lot of vegetable sources of milk, or milk as well, but here we're talking specifically about things that come from animals. So exactly. So and again, feel free to throw your ideas out as well. How do animals benefit people's lives? So we just talked about food here really quickly. I feel like animals get used a lot to assist us with labor. For example, they're used for transportation. So that might be something, right? Obviously, humans for forever have been using animals for transportation, right? Whether it's traveling on, horseback. So yeah, traveling by horseback. So, which means riding on a horse, right? Or, on camels, for example. That's another sort of common mode of transportation you might use if you live in a desert area, for example, right? Also, it's common to use animals to pull carts and things like that, right? Or, say buggies, the little sort of covered cart with wheels. So those sort of thing, you might hear the word, a horse and buggy. Let's see if I can't get a picture of that really quick so we know what I mean. But yeah, transportation is definitely a big thing. Just gotta grab a screenshot of this really quickly. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, there we go. Here's a nice one. Okay, there we go. There's an old-fashioned horse and buggy. So you can see there. Yeah, so, obviously this would have been one of the only transportation options available before the invention of motors and cars, right? So, and they still are used for transportation today, right? We also use them for, again, going back to labor, for agricultural work, right? And anything in agriculture or something related to, agricultural work, we mean working on farms, right? So, growing plants, harvesting food, that sort of thing, right? So it's really common to use animals like oxen and horses for plowing the fields, right? And other tasks. And if we're not sure, so ox is an interesting word. This is a plural. It's plural. And ox is just for one. And you can see it's one of those irregular plurals. I'm gonna get a picture of this as well too, so we know what an ox is. But it's basically a large It's basically a really big cow. Let's see. Oxen. See if we can get a team of oxen up here. There we go. And take a picture of this for you guys as well. Yeah, there we go. So some oxen that are, we call this the yoke. So they're yoked and they're pulling, usually we'll use them to pull plows and things like that, right? So that's like one thing as well, right? Another benefit, you know, companionship, right? How many of us have pets? So many people have pets, right? That's really common, right? I mean, and not just cats and dogs, but lots of other animals, right? So, you know, cats and dogs kept as pets. So that's definitely a benefit too, right? It benefits our mental health, right? You don't feel like you're alone all the time, right? You feel less lonely, right? Also, maybe your pets will encourage you to get out and exercise more, right? This is a really big thing, right? So, you know, lots of really positive things there as well too, right? Yeah, and again, if you have any ideas, throw them out there. We'll add them to the list. I think one more final thing that kind of comes to me is just clothing, you know, clothing as well, right? It's very common to use animals when making clothing. I mean, nowadays we have a lot of vegan, so nowadays a lot of, I'm going to call them vegan friendly options. So there's a lot of, like, you know, faux fur, for example, where it's or fake leather, right? So made usually out of plastic, etc. However, you know, it's common to source leather, for example, is made from, you know, the skins of animals, for example, right? So there's definitely that, right? And also, you know, sheep are raised for wool, right? So that's another thing too, right? So wool, you know, comes from sheep, for example. So that's another sort of source of clothing as well too. Both really common, really important, right? And, you know, if you live in some places, you know, the fake versions, basically fake, some synthetic material doesn't protect you as well as real material, right? So if you live in the Arctic, right, it's still really common to wrap yourself in furs and things like that, right? Because the synthetic options maybe aren't as well, right? Or they don't work as well. So yeah, so leather, wool are really common for clothing. All right, perfect. So let's look at a task now together, now that we're thinking about animals and we have them on our minds. So if we don't know, part 2, a lot of people call it the long turn, rather. And it's basically a monologue. If you're not sure what a monologue is when one person speaks at length for a period of time. So only one person is talking by themselves. And here you're going to be talking for a minute about 2 pictures. So we're focusing on the B2 first task today. On the C1 advanced task, you will get 3 pictures to choose from. you still only have to talk about 2 of those pictures. And then on the B2 first exam, you only get 2 pictures. So you don't have options. You have to talk about the 2 pictures they give you. But yeah, so you will get a piece of paper. It's gonna have 2 photos for the B2 first exam or 3 photos for the C1 advanced exam. You must talk about 2 of these photos. You must compare and contrast them, answer the questions. They come with questions. 1 question for the B2 first exam, 2 questions for the C1 advanced exam. And you have to do all of that in 1 minute. So your monologue is going to be 1 minute long. And then after that, your partner is going to answer a question about your photos. You will also answer a question about their photos. Yeah, so it's very quick. This does not take a lot of time. You don't really have a lot of time to look at the photos. They pretty much, hand you the paper with the photos. They quickly summarize the task, which is just, the question on the page. And then you have to get comparing, contrasting, answering those questions. So today we're going to look at these great pictures here. So we have pictures. They show people doing activities with animals, and we're going to compare the 2 pictures. We're going to compare 2 of the pictures and say why people might choose to do these activities with animals. All right, so once we hear all right, that means that it's our turn to go. So, but we're going to just brainstorm first some ways to talk about these pictures, right? So we need to compare the photos and then answer the question. So let's just talk really quickly. Let's first talk about the description of these pictures, because there's some interesting things going on. So let's talk about description of images. There we go. And we're gonna call this, I don't have my pen today, but this is gonna be we'll call this number 1, and we'll call this number 2. Just like that. Okay, perfect. All right, so describing these images. And again, if you have ideas, feel free to throw them out. We will all put our notes together. We'll have that as a reference later, but let's talk about picture 1. So picture 1, what does it look like they're doing? They're doing a form, it's like a form of physical activity, right? Or exercise, right? They are doing some exercise or doing exercises, we might say. And you notice here, do, that verb is going to colloquiate with exercise. You do exercise. So they're doing exercises, right? And more specifically, they are doing yoga. And you can see here too, doing or do is going to collocate with yoga. So we do yoga. All right, so they're doing yoga. It looks like the majority of the people are women, right? So a lot of women here. And also note my pronunciation here. So because like 1 is gonna be woman, a woman. Let's see if I can get the pronunciation up here really quickly. So 1 is woman, 1 woman, like this. But here, the plural, it's women, women. So you see that this sound changes, women, women. So that's really important. So I hear a lot of people confusing these, but women. So the majority of these people are women. And it looks like, so they're doing this activity, it looks like they're outside. looks like they are outside, or it looks like they are outdoors. Outdoors with an S here. So it look like they are outdoors. And they are doing, yeah, they're doing yoga with some goats. So this animal, this is a goat. Yeah, so they're doing, looks like they're doing yoga in the park, maybe, with some goats. If you're not sure what this is called, this is the yoga. This is a yoga mat. So that's a yoga mat. Yeah. We might also refer to the style of pants as, you know, well, yoga pants, we could call them yoga pants, but we could also call them tights as well. Some people might refer to them as tights. So yeah, so these women are wearing tights. They're on the grass. So the grass is this green, the name of this green leafy material you would find in a lawn. Yeah, maybe they're in the park. They are in a park, or they are on a lawn. And a lawn is just a name for a big sort of grassy space. Let's see if I can get a picture. Sort of usually in front of a house, but it's all, you know, they mow it and it's manicured as in it's, they take care of it, they mow it. Here is a lawn. Okay, there we go. Here we go, there's a lawn. And it looks like it was recently mowed. So, yeah, so, yeah, exactly, mowed. So that's the past, we could use mow as a verb. Here's the past form of that. So it looks like it's been mowed recently, a mowed lawn. Anyways, yeah, so I think that's about all we can say about this picture. Let's talk about the second picture now. So second picture, we have elephants, right? And we don't just have one elephant, but we have multiple elephants, right? And we would refer we would call a group of elephants a herd of elephants. So we have a bit of a herd of elephants here. Yeah, so herd of elephants, and they're all gathered around this gentleman, this man, who is playing the piano. Yeah, so we would say to play, and you'll notice here too that typically we would use the article here. So, you know, when I was a kid, I played the piano. Yeah, so, or, you know, I have friends who play the guitar. It's really common to use the like this article when we're talking about musical instruments. Yeah, and played, you know, the guitar growing up, for example. Yeah, so we tend to use the articles here when we're talking about that, when we're talking about musical instruments. Going back to this picture specifically, because there's different types of pianos, right? A couple different types of pianos. We would call this one like an upright piano. An upright piano, or at least I would. Like an upright piano, as opposed to like the big grand pianos. I'll show you the grand piano. Those are like the really big ones. I'm gonna get a picture. Here we go. As opposed to one of these babies. So this is a grand piano. This is an upright piano. It's a bit smaller, right? Yeah, so he's playing the piano. He's sitting on we would call this the piano bench. So he's sitting on a piano bench, right? So that's what we would call that, piano bench. He's got music in front of him, and we would refer to that as sheet music. So he's looking at some sheet music. So that's what we would call the music that you would refer to that you're playing. It has the notation on it, right? So we call that sheet music. So he's looking at sheet music. He's playing his instrument. He's playing the piano. And all of these, you know, elephants are listening to him play the piano, looks like. Yeah. So all of these and elephants, you know, and just be careful. You always want to make sure that, you know, if we're saying these or this or that, it's going to agree with whatever we're talking about, right? So these elephants are listening to him play the piano. All right, perfect. And now let's look at the question now. So let's brainstorm some reasons for which people might do these or choose to do these activities with animals. So why choose to do these activities? So again, let's go back to talking about number one. So picture one. So picture one, so maybe we would, like, why would we do this? Why would we do yoga with goats? You know, possibly, maybe because it's fun. That probably would be the first thing that comes to mind. You know, I might also, you know, it's fun. It's fun. Oops, it's fun because, you know, goats can be funny. So let's talk about the difference between these words really, really, really quickly, because sometimes I hear people confusing them. If something is fun, it's enjoyable. So something fun is enjoyable. It's something that you like to do. It doesn't necessarily make you laugh or anything. For example, I used to bike a lot. I thought it was really fun, right? It was a fun activity. Yeah, something I really enjoyed, I liked a lot. So something fun is enjoyable, that something you like, right? Whereas something that's funny, something funny makes you laugh. So important to remember that. So something funny makes you laugh. And sometimes I even hear sort of advanced students making these mistakes. So watch out for this one. Yeah, so something fun, enjoyable, something funny makes you laugh, like a comedian would make you laugh. So yeah, so something that makes you laugh. So the goats would be funny. You know, they probably will kind of get in the way. Maybe they will like, look at this one. He's like sniffing her ear. Like, so that would be funny. So it would be fun, and maybe that would, you know, it would be relaxing, right? Maybe. Maybe it's relaxing, right? A lot of people do yoga because it's relaxing. And it's just kind of a, you know, it's a form of physical activity that's not as intense as maybe some other forms of activity. So a lot of people, you know, it's less intense than other forms of physical activity, such as, I don't know, running, for example. Running is very intense, right? Whereas yoga is more relaxing. Yeah. You know, maybe we might say that they do it with goats Because just in general, you know, the goats would take your mind off of the activity, right? So the goats maybe would help take your mind off of the activity. And what does that mean? If you take your mind off something. Uh-oh. I think I'm still here. Okay, there you go. Yeah, so the goats would help take your mind off of the activity. If you take your mind off something, it means that you stop thinking about it. You know, so maybe that makes them feel less self-conscious about working out. I don't know. If you feel self-conscious about something, you know, you're really like thinking about yourself and you're being really critical about yourself. You know, you're thinking about yourself and you're very critical about yourself. You're like, oh my God, am I doing it right? Am I looking like a fool? You know, are my poses okay? Whereas, you know, the goats would probably distract you. You would be worrying less about that, right? So it would take your mind off of it and you would feel a lot more comfortable, more relaxed, right? And in the end, you know, maybe it would, you know, it seems less like exercise, right? And more like a form of entertainment, right? Because as we said, it's a lot of fun, right? It's more fun. And it's a lot more fun, and it doesn't feel like, you know, you're not going to the gym, you're not exhausting yourself. So it's a lot more enjoyable, right? How about this picture? Let's talk about the second picture. So why might people choose to do this activity? It's like, well, I suppose maybe elephants like music. I think they're curious animals. Elephants are very intelligent, right? And they are curious, right? So they probably enjoy the music, right? They probably respond, right? Probably respond and maybe even try to like interact with the piano or pianist. So a pianist is a person who plays a piano. You know, so, and you know, maybe this is because I'm sure this didn't happen in the middle of, you know, a wild like savanna or something like that. This is probably an enclosed area, maybe a zoo, but maybe also an animal, maybe it's an animal sanctuary. And an animal sanctuary is a place where animals would go. They would be able to live out their lives in peace, not have to worry about being treated cruelly, and you know, they can just like live a nice life, be taken care of, and be protected, right? So, and it's, if you're in an animal sanctuary or even in a zoo, it's really common to give animals forms of enrichment. So maybe this is a form of enrichment for these elephants. So enrichment, basically just activities or things like maybe toys, other items, this sort of thing, activities or things that, you know, help the animals enjoy their lives, basically. Enjoy their lives, yeah, so help the animals enjoy their lives and maybe provides them with mental stimulation. Yeah, so something mental stimulation would be those kind of things that make your mind work, right? If you stimulate something, you do something that causes something to work. So to stimulate, yeah, basically you do something that causes something else to relax, or something else to react. Ooh. So in this case, we're talking about things that make our mind active. So music has a tendency to make us think, you know, it can cause us to have emotions and emotional reaction, right? So that is mentally stimulating. It's interesting, makes them think, makes them curious. So yeah, so maybe, you know, maybe they might do, this person might do this activity for that reason, right? So they want to bring this to the animals. So yeah. Perfect. So let's do, so I have a model answer here, kind of. I have a model answer here, and we're going to do a bit of a word find, actually. We're going to do a bit of a word find. And I'm hoping this works out. I was supposed to do this live like 2 weeks ago. So I prepared this, and then I was having computer problems. But I made these activities. I made these, and I forgot to double check this before I came in here today. But we're gonna look at this example, and let's look for either a word or a phrase used for comparing or contrasting, I believe, but a word or a phrase. We're going to look for something to say that one thing is similar to another thing. We're going to look for one thing that refers to two photos at the same time. We're going to look for something to introduce a contrasting idea, a word to say that something is different from something else, and a word or a phrase that means to say that two situations are similar to one another. So I'm going to leave this up on the screen for a second. I'll read it out loud, and then we'll look at the answers together. All right, so I want you to think about these. I want you to look for these in this answer. So, in one photo, there are several women doing yoga in a park outside. Similarly, the other photo is also taken outside. There's a man playing a piano for a small herd of elephants, and it looks like they're all listening to his song. So, in both photos, they are enjoying the fresh air and sunshine. Yoga with goats would be a lot of fun for participants. Conversely, normal yoga might seem a bit boring. Maybe the goats make the women more relaxed and motivate them to hold their poses. The goats are involved in the activity, unlike in the other photo where the person is performing for the elephants. Playing music for animals would be enjoyable. In the same way, the goats probably are having a lot of fun during the yoga class. Both activities are mentally stimulating for the animals and would enrich their lives. Yeah, so many ways you can talk about these photos. This is just one idea based on some of the ideas that we had talked about, but we can see that, you know, we weren't just describing the photos, but we were also comparing and contrasting while thinking about the answer, right? Like, why would people do these? Why might people choose to do these activities? So let's look at these now here. So let's see here. So if we want to say that one thing is similar to another thing, we could use the word similarly. And you can see here that similarly is followed by a comma. So if we're writing, we would need a comma here. But yeah, so we might say similarly. To refer to the two photos at the same time, because we can talk about, broadly about the two photos as well. That is absolutely fine, right? So we might say, in both photos, we could say, oops, right, so yeah, so both photos happened outside, right, obviously, but they're enjoying some fresh air and sunshine. So that might be one reason why they would choose to do those activities, right? Get some fresh air, get some sunshine. A word to introduce a contrasting idea. So here we have the word conversely. And again, you can see that this is being followed by a comma. So again, also important. And you can see that here in this example, so I had yoga with goats would be a lot of fun for participants. So it'd be a lot of fun. Conversely, or however, normal yoga might seem a bit boring. So we're comparing goat yoga with normal yoga here. So we're using conversely here to say that the other option would be different, right? It's very similar to saying, however, or in contrast, right? To talk about a difference. Let's see. Oops. Introduce a contrasting idea. Sorry, there we go. All right. So to say one thing is different from something else. So here we have unlike. To say one thing is different from something else. So here in this example, so the goats are involved in the activity, unlike in the other photo where the person is performing for the elephants. Okay, yeah, so here, so if we go back here for a second and look at the pictures, right, so the goats, they're very much involved in what's going on here, right? Like, we can see one back here as well too, right? So the goats are in the middle of these people. It looks like they're interacting with the participants, right? So there's a lot of interaction going on between the animals and the participants. While here, the animals it's a bit more passive, right? They're observing, they're listening to the performance, but they're not necessarily interacting with the person who is playing the piano, right? So yeah, so the goats are involved in the activity, unlike in the other photo where the person is performing for the elephants. So there you go. We can say something is unlike something else. So we might say that. And then finally, to say two situations are very similar. So here you can see that I've used so in the same way. So let's look at this example. So play music for animals would be enjoyable. Okay, so enjoyable. So in the same way, the goats are probably having a lot of fun during yoga class. So there you can see that I've used this phrase here as well to say that they are, they're similar in this way, right? So in the same way. All right, perfect. Yeah. All right, great. So great job. If you were able to spot these, and even if not, I mean, that's fine as well. We are here to learn. I was trying to think of ones that I don't use as often. So here we are. But yeah, obviously when it comes to this task, you're going to sort of gravitate towards using the same vocabulary. I tend to use a lot of like on the other hand, or in both photos, or similarly. Like there are key phrases that you'll find yourself coming back to over and over and over again. So there are a lot of other ways that we can talk about these these differences. You'll just have to find what vocabulary works best for you, right? When you're preparing to do this task. All right, so let's just look before we wrap up. As I mentioned before, yeah, after the photos are talked about, the other candidate gets asked a question about the photos. So, and usually this question, it requires the candidate to use a superlative, not always. And what do I mean by a superlative? Superlative. So that means, you know, like what is the best, or what is the least, or like the least interesting, or like the most of something, or the most important. So those, so yeah, so, you know, choosing one thing over everything else, right? So that's what we mean by a superlative. So here you can see this activity, or this question here. Which activity would you enjoy the most? And you don't have a lot of time to respond, but maybe about 30 seconds. So you have about time to, you know, answer the question, basically. And then we always want to extend on our answer a little bit. So I'd like to give a reason. And then potentially you could take it a step further and give an example. So yeah, so, and you know, following this pattern, you should be able to talk for about 30 seconds or so. Yeah. All right. So feel free to throw out your ideas, which activity you would enjoy most. I think I don't know what I would prefer most. I think I would enjoy yoga with goats the most, because, so now we're going to give a reason, right? Because I do a lot of yoga in my day-to-day life. And here now we can tie that into an example. So yeah, so I think I would enjoy yoga with goats the most because I do a lot of yoga in my day-to-day life. And that would be maybe an easy activity for me to do. I actually take yoga classes multiple times a week. So, and I enjoy doing, you know, yoga with my friends in the park, you know. And we just basically want to potentially keep talking, right? But just for about 30 seconds. But yeah, you know, say what it is, answer the question directly. Don't give a long introduction, but answer the question directly. Then give a reason, right? So I do yoga in my day-to-day life, so it would be easy for me to do. And then give an example, right? So I actually take a lot of yoga classes many times a week, and I already enjoy doing yoga with my friends in the park, right? So we can say a little bit, a couple of things there, right? I would say that you would have enough time to give an example in this part if you can. All right, perfect. And again, too, if you have your ideas as well, if you let me know which activity you would enjoy the most and let me know why. Let's look at another question together. So which activity maybe would be the most difficult to do? So the most difficult to do. Well, again, thinking about the two, right? So I'd imagine that playing the piano for elephants would be the most challenging thing. Because, you know, not everybody can play the piano. So it takes a very specific set of skills to play the piano, right? Because, yeah, not everyone knows how to play the piano. So you'd need a very specific set of skills to do that, right? So that would be challenging, maybe. Right, exactly. So for example, someone who's never played the piano before probably maybe wouldn't play something animals would enjoy listening to. I don't know. Yeah, so probably, there we go. So for example, someone who's never played the piano before probably wouldn't be able to play something animals would enjoy. But I don't know. We're just making it up. The thing about this task, the thing about a lot of these tasks is that they're a bit weird in some ways, right? They're always things that you've never really thought about, maybe. And they want to kind of stump you, right? They want to see that you're able to use your English, but use it in sort of unfamiliar contexts, right? So that's why they don't necessarily give you easy things to talk about. They give you things that are a little bit more challenging, a little bit more out of the box to talk about, because they want to see that you're able to sort of, they want to see that you're still able to produce English and speak with a relatively high level of accuracy and fluency while you're unsure. Because it's in those moments that people have a tendency to lose their fluency, right? Or they struggle to come up with ideas, right? So they want to give you things that you haven't thought about before. So that's fine. So just, make it up, right? Another thing to keep in mind too, if your answer is not amazing for a question, that's fine, because they definitely take the entire exam into consideration when it comes to doing your mark. So you cannot fail an exam just because you did bad for one question, right? That will not happen. They look at overall, and there's a lot of things that go into compiling your score. It's not just, your vocabulary and your grammar, for example, but also how you interact with the other candidate, right? And your pronunciation, right? Your fluency. So there's a lot of things that go into determining your score. It goes beyond just being able to answer this silly question in a way that sounds intelligent, right? So don't worry too much. Don't worry about sounding brilliant. A lot of candidates get really frustrated. They're like, oh, I don't know how to answer this question in a way that makes me sound really intelligent. But like, I don't know. You're not always going to have something amazing to say about every question, and that's perfectly fine. And they do that intentionally. They want to challenge you. So just keep that in mind. Let's look at one more question and then we're gonna go. So here's a more general question, because we can get asked general questions as well during this part of the exam. Not always a superlative. It's usually a superlative or something, but here, just, do you like spending time with animals? And again, feel free to put out your ideas. But yeah, do you like spending time with animals? So, I personally, yes, I do enjoy spending time with animals. And you can notice here that enjoy here is followed by the ing form of the verb that comes after it. So it's never, yes, I do enjoy to spend time. That is wrong. It's always going to be enjoy spending time, or I enjoy doing something. I enjoy cooking. I enjoy taking walks. Always going to have that ing form. So yes, I do enjoy spending time with animals. So again, right, so give a reason. I enjoy spending time with animals, maybe because I find them really interesting and fun. They bring, I don't know, a lot of joy to my life. I have a cat. So here we'll bring an example. So I have a cat, and he loves to play and can be really, I don't know, he can be really silly sometimes, which makes me laugh. So I definitely like to spend as much time with him as possible, right? Maybe something like that. Maybe you hate spending time with animals. That's fine. We don't need to relate personally to every question. We have to answer the questions. We need to be able to respond to the questions, but you know, you're not always going to be able to say, oh yeah, I love this thing, or yeah, I do this thing all the time. Sometimes questions don't really relate to your life, or you have to respond to them in sort of like a negative way. So, you know, it's like, no. So, and we can do that. We can respond honestly. We can say when something doesn't apply, when something isn't part of our lives. That is absolutely okay. The goal here, the goal of the exam is to just get talking, right? It's to show that we are able to speak and produce language about a variety of different topics. So being able to express yourself is the most important thing. What you answer or how brilliant your answers are is far less important. The most important thing is just being able to show that you can speak, right? So we can definitely say, no, I don't like something at all, and we can be honest about that, and it's fine. So no, I actually don't like spending time with animals. I am actually allergic to animals. Yeah, you see here, I'm allergic. So that means that you have an allergy. So that means you can't be around it. It's like a medical thing, right? And note these collocations. So we say to have an allergy or to be allergic to something. So yeah, so I'm actually allergic to animals. So I don't know, couldn't be around them even if I wanted to. That is a great second conditional there. So I couldn't be around them even if I wanted to because they make me sick. Since they make me sick. Yeah. So, I mean, we could definitely say something like this. You could take it a step further and maybe speculate why other people might like animals. That's also a very valid way to approach questions that don't apply to you. So maybe, yeah, so I personally don't like spending time with animals. I'm actually allergic to them. I won't say them. So I couldn't be around them even if I wanted to since they make me sick. Like, however, I know animals can make great companions, so I can see why others might like being around them. Maybe something like that. So there we go. I've thrown in a speculation about what other people might think, which is a great strategy as well for when we're talking about something that doesn't apply to us. We can turn it around, speculate about other people, and that is actually a great strategy for figuring out how to talk about some of these questions. All right. Okay, so that is it. As I mentioned, I am going to put these notes together and I am going to up this video onto YouTube so we can all learn from this a bit later. I'm going to do this next week as well. So I have a part 3 and a part 4. So part 3 will also happen, should happen this time, the same time, 1400 UTC, next Thursday. And then the Thursday after that, we'll do part 4. And again, the topic is going to be animals. I'm actually going to be starting a new topic, but because I'm behind, because I missed one, I'm going to be doing the part 4 one. But yeah, so we'll still be talking about animals while looking at a different, sort of a new topic if you follow me on Telegram. Also, I've been trying to get sort of a study group happening for people who are maybe studying for something. Could be an exam. Could also just be general language studies, English studies, so it doesn't have to be specifically for an exam. But I've been trying to get a group together on Discord, and so far I've had people interested in it, but nobody has been actually posting. I'm using it to improve my Italian though, and I think it would be really fantastic to have sort of a core group of people interested in that. So, yeah, in my mind, I'm envisioning sort of a daily check-in type thing where we can share our goals for the day, and share our goals for the week. And then on Sundays, I wanted to host sort of a weekly get-together. And I was thinking about having this text-based, but I'm also kind of thinking that maybe it could be a voice-based thing as well, because we have rooms there that we can talk in, right? So maybe we could have like a weekly sort of chat, planning session, talk about our goals, what we're gonna do. But yeah, so if that sounds like something that you're interested in doing, send me a note on Telegram. That would be really great. Or go to the Discord and post under accountability. And if you don't see it, because I think there's a problem where people aren't seeing everything on the Discord, and that has to do with how Discord is just set up, and I don't know how to change it. But if you go under option, there's an option to list all the rooms, like all the channels on Discord. So if you don't see it in the default view, go under settings and get it to show all of the channels, and there's like a heading and there's some rooms. It's called accountability. But yeah, maybe I'll start posting in there again. I stopped because I was the only one doing it. But if you're interested in that would be great. It's because it would be really cool to have a sort of a core group of studiers, and we could keep each other company, because studying's really lonely, right? Yeah. So that's there as well. And of course too, I always have lots of stuff going on in Telegram. I share lots of exercises and activities there. Way more things are happening on Telegram than they are on YouTube or Facebook. There's also lots of, there's like the Instagram groups, or sort of the Instagram accounts where we're sharing lots of reading posts and vocabulary posts and things of that nature. So there's lots of things that you could potentially do, lots of places you could go to learn more vocabulary. And if you haven't noticed, I tend to look at a new topic I'm doing it every 6 weeks right now. So a new topic every 6 weeks. So right now we're talking about animals, but next time it'll be something else, etc., etc. All right. Anyways, thank you all for coming out. Notes will be up shortly, and I look forward to seeing you all next time. All right, perfect. Okay. Bye.